The best people I've ever known have experienced a tremendous amount of pain. So too have the worst people I've ever known. And the difference lies in their ability to metabolize it. This is going to be off the cuff, no script, no AI. I'm going to speak from a personal vantage point, but I hope in a way that gives you insight into what you can do with it in a practical way. In a lot of ways, my career and personal training, my own training, and then also the coaching of others, has been oriented around this. A lot of it's been oriented around how we apply stimulus to get a certain outcome. And the challenge is a lot of times these stimuli are painful, and sometimes they're intended, and then sometimes life just throws you curveballs. But the people that lead others, the people that get to the highest levels of performance themselves, often experience more pain and they learn to metabolize it. So what's the difference? There's a lot of language around this that I think people get hung up on. We could talk about trauma, we could talk about nervous system regulation, we could talk about things that feel maybe a little bit abstract and that could steer us away from actionable insights and outcomes. But I want to talk about the body, and in particular, how the body shows up in important moments in ways that influence and maybe even codify the mind. Who you think you are, how you show up under pressure. A lot of times it stems from this and not always from this. So when I was in college, I remember attending a workshop with incredible martial artists. And there was one particular day where I experienced, let's say, top 5 moments of physical pain in my life, where I was thrown and used to demonstrate on for hours on hours. And at one point, the instructor made a clear note for me and the rest of the class, which was, pain is good. Pain is information. Injury is what you need to avoid. And despite that amount of pain over the course of the day, I was uninjured, a little bit sore. It took me a few days to feel myself again, but I was uninjured and I was able to take away all those lessons. Other people in the same position might have experienced those pains and tried to flee from it. So what's going on and what's different, and how is this even related to the psyche in moments of pressure? Now, most of us tend to identify with certain personality or character traits. We have identities. But once upon a time, we had a nervous system response and orientation that was unscripted, and it didn't come from a point of knowing or processing or even identity. It was organic and a true act of genius in the moment. In the Prestige, our Applied Somatics Academy, we identify 4 of these that are at the center of our somatic model: the warrior, the shapeshifter, the sage, and the asset. Each one of these is a brilliant intelligence that governs, let's say one quadrant of somatic intelligence. Some people have a double dominance. Some people maybe are even balanced across all 4. If they've done extensive training in the mind-body domain, or even if they've never acquired a true dominant trait. But most of us fall into one of these 4 quadrants. I'm going to talk about 2 of them in this video, the warrior and the asset, because they give you everything you need to know about metabolizing pain in real time and then in the aftermath. If you don't know your orientation, it takes 2 minutes. We have a quiz for it down below. I personally spent a ton of time creating this damn thing. It is not a simple assessment. You can trust the results. So go ahead and take that quiz. Come back and finish this talk with me. Now, let's look at a moment of pressure where the body and the mind have a unified response in one of 2 vectors. Now again, there are more. There are 4 primary. There are hybrids. But these 2 will tell you everything you need to understand about the processing of pain. You're facing a triggering event. Could be physical, could be psychological, could be somebody being verbally abusive, could be a pressure in your environment with siblings or at work, or name your point of pressure, but try to go back a long time, like childhood era. One of these 2 primary responses will dominate. The first one, I feel pressure, And so I respond by organizing myself against it. I structure myself. I generate tension in my system, and I focus to be able to navigate it and push through. I resist in that moment. And this is not a psychological orientation alone. It is one that is born of all the tissues of the body organizing and the nervous system charging the system to be able to act and to resist. On the other side of that, I might find myself a little bit more sensitive, receptive, feeling, not knowing how to navigate it and not organizing myself against it, or even finding a way to focus through it, but feeling everything. I feel the impact of the environment, the judgment, the eyes that are on me. And my response, without thinking about it, is one to sense and to try to find a way through this. And one of two things happens. I either can navigate it in the manner of a shapeshifter, or I feel through it in the manner of the asset or empath. But oftentimes, that leads to a point of fleeing, not solution building. Often it takes time to cultivate an intuitive or empathic response that you can rely on and trust. But what often happens is a sense of overwhelm. And so the more that I lean into that, the more I retreat from real pressure and find myself needing hours, days, or weeks of retreat so that I can find my center again. And so these two portraits, the one of the resisting persona, the warrior stepping in, organizing themselves to push back and say no to the environment. I'm insisting on my will, or the alternative, which is to feel too much and without meaning to, saying, yes, I take it all in, but I need to step away. And now if we take that as a point of pain that we're orienting around, we find two narratives. And these evolve after the experience itself. The former of the warrior is one of, under pressure, I push back and I rise. I'm the type that rises under pressure. I'm the type that fights back. And the other one says, I easily get overwhelmed and I have to flee. And each one of these leaves a psychosomatic imprint that can last a lifetime if we're unconscious to it. But it also gets reinforced as we start to accumulate points of impact, pressure, and pain. Now, the point of this video isn't to tell you to go out and seek or lean into pain, but it is to give you an insight into how these orientations evolve so that you have the ability to choose what happens in the next moment. That is moving from a point of unconscious response or reactivity into conscious choice that is empowering. And if it matters to you to be a next level performer in your category, whatever that might be, or even a leader of other individuals, then this is truly a threshold premise that needs to be understood. Now to the second gate. This is where some could maybe accurately apply the term trauma, but we don't need it for this conversation. Let's use the term residual pain, meaning there's an acute moment. I could be offended. Somebody could be yelling at me. It could be physical pain. It could be athletic pain. It could be something that my system has to metabolize and process, and we can't reduce it to just saying, well, it's not something I like up here, because you know when that pressure rises and that pain is felt, the body is processing it. The adrenaline gets dumped, the cortisol spikes, the heart rate increases, and your entire system is responding in real time. That's the event. But what happens in the moments that follow are that you might be carrying that forward into new moments that don't have that pain or pressure. And that is when one moment translates into character and personality over time. This is a critical insight, and it's also built into the framework of the somatic skins that we have, which is first to understand and cultivate your skin, but then second, learning to command all four, because these aren't you. You tend to live in one of them, maybe two, if you've got a little bit of training and conditioning, but all four of them live within us. And the path to elite performance is learning to command all four of them. That's true nervous system range. You can be anyone. That's an incredible story. But we move from a moment of pressure, or a series of these moments, and we start to carry them forward. The first orientation, the warrior, does so by generating tension and structure that doesn't dissipate after the event or the trigger. They wake up the next day. They're still charged. They're still angry. They're still resisting. they're confronted with another moment of pain. I have to fight that one too because it worked the last time. So I'm going to carry that, and then it happens day after day, week after week, month after month, until that persona is no longer a choice. I'm waking up with that tension. I'm waking up with that bracing in my life. And so then the next time a pain point crops up, there is no thinking, there is no premise of orienting around it. The other skins are now pushed to the side, and it is one orientation. I am the fighter. I resist. But that isn't a point of healing or integration. This is unconscious, right? And the truth is, this new moment isn't that old moment. So you wake up, and even right now as you're watching this, are you aware of the tension even in your face? Can you relax your jaw, your cheeks, and let the skin just hang? Can you relax the shoulders? If you could, in the last few seconds, realize that you were carrying tension that wasn't necessary even listening to this, that was yesterday's story that is carried forward into this moment. That's the power of a somatic profile. What once was an act of genius, an organization, that your nervous system said this is safe, later becomes a cage that traps you into solutions you're not even conscious of and limits your ability to then navigate things where, let's say you're in a situation with your partner in life or at work, and okay, the environment isn't giving you what you want. Maybe you're feeling a point of judgment. Maybe there's conflict in a meaningful relationship where in this moment doesn't need the warrior. Okay, well now what do you do? If all you've cultivated is that one solution, how do you move now into other ranges of sensitivity, empathy, malleability and navigation of the shapeshifter, or even focus and the ability to analyze the situation and say, this doesn't require that guy, that gal, the fighter. This is a different moment. That's where this starts to transition from conditioning and the native unconscious skin into a path of healing. Yeah? We look at the other side of this, the asset. The asset is one that tends to identify with trauma, that tends to identify with pain, but not in a good way. It's not empowering. They flee it because it's information that they associate with injury, and the impact of it is one they just don't want to feel. It's almost an affront to who they think they are. So the solution is, well, I need to get rid of that. I need to remove that so that I can center. It's about that thing. The orientation is still about the pain. And so, just like we did with the warrior, there is a moment. The solution is very simple. I'm overwhelmed. I'm sensing and feeling everything because that's my nature. I'm opened up and exposed. It's too much. So what do? Well, I have to retreat. Now, what happens the next day? Well, I retreat. And the next week, well, I retreat. And then this becomes a point of psychosomatic orientation to pressure and to pain, which is that as pressures rise, I shrink. I eliminate the pressure and move away from it. Now I ask you, if you want to build a business, if you want to have strong relationships, if you want to do anything that is you consider maybe a level above where you are today, how does that work when your first response is retreat? That's where we go from a moment of genius to say, okay, I felt my way through this. I navigated this experience with intuition into, well, again, now it's a cage. Now I don't have the resourcefulness to say, today it would matter for me to remain present, remain in contact with this pressure and not retreat because this person matters, this business matters, this passion, this art, this thing matters, and I need to carry it further forward. What happens in the moment where that is the best solution and not this? So when that personality does not default to, well, I need to practice more quote unquote escapism, but let's say I need to practice more meditation. I need to go center myself in ways that are emotionally expressive and feel good to me. That isn't the solution according to our model at least, but as somebody that's lived 30 years in the martial arts, it isn't anybody's solution because there are points of contact that define you and that need you to remain present. So the point of healing first is to move from that quadrant of sensation, of letting too much in, to say, I can first nullify and numb this enough. I can take on a little bit more pressure without being overwhelmed. I can focus my way through it, and I can resist it just enough to remain in contact. That's moving now from an unconscious initial response that is genius through a point where it becomes your cage and your default, into a point where you say, I have more resources, and my point of healing isn't through more sensation, isn't through more retreat, but is being able to organize myself and remain in contact. That's a point of healing that becomes a point of leadership now when you're in contact with others. That's a range of performance and leadership. So the metabolism of pain is perhaps the most defining attribute of a true leader and a high performer. Because anytime that you try to rise, by definition, it is going to be out of your comfort zone. Comfort being something that you can metabolize effortlessly. Performance being something that asks you to rise to meet the occasion. Pain is what stands in between, whether it's processed cognitively or whether it's felt physically or somewhere in between. It's the same nervous system, the same psychosoma dealing with the information being contact, or information being cognitive or emotional processing. It doesn't matter, you have the same response. Learning to process this is first, on a broad scale, a path of healing. It brings you back to center and gives you access to choose other orientations. But then the second stage of that is accelerating that process, remaining present in real time, and being able to choose this response. I'm in contact. I'm feeling pain. Am I going to revert to a previously established pattern, or am I going to choose how I show up? And it may not be what makes me most comfortable. That is an unbelievably powerful state of reorientation and self-definition in the moment. This is the work that we do at The Prestige with leaders, performers, coaches, artists, people that want to go from good to that next level edge in their own spaces. We don't teach people how to be better in their crafts or in their worlds, but we do give them the tools that define ours, and they change everything. If this is something that interests you, another link in the description. If you've taken the quiz, you're already in contact with us via emails. You can just respond to an email if you're curious about having a conversation about joining a season of The Prestige, where Lindsay and I, you've probably seen her in other videos on this channel, where we coach wonderful people. We got a great community into higher levels of performance, and we do so through one-off, incredible, unique somatic events that teach you and train you to reorient in real time, coaching circles, community, and then higher level options of transformation. It's an incredible place. But look us up, have a conversation if it interests you, and let's talk about that next level for yourself. See you in the next one.